It's time for the Dynamics X podcast. My name is Frederick Satra, and I'm joined by Tommy Skera and Dick Wenning, and we're talking about development today. Everything from upgrading code from AX 2009 or 3.0 and earlier versions even to AX 7. And also we talk about the development program and how the system has evolved over the last couple of years. So stay tuned. This is the Dynamics X podcast, episode 1, recorded October 3rd, 2016. Welcome to the Dynamics X podcast. We're going to do a couple of podcasts, I think bi-weekly, with a couple of guests, some returning more often than others, like the one up here to my right. It's Tommy. Hello, Tommy.
Hello,
From,
Frederick.
Yet another dynamicsaxblog.com. You didn't get a shorter URL?
No, I didn't. So it's yet another dynamicsaxblog.blogspot.com.
The blogspot. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yet another dynamicsaxblog.blogspot.com. Is that?
Yeah, that's it.
Good. And you're just Skera on Twitter?
That's right.
Yes. And congratulations with your fourth consecutive MVP award.
Thank you.
Yes. And to my left, it's Dick Wenning. Hi, Dick.
Hello.
9-year MVP. Is that consecutive every year?
Yes,
Still
9 years
running?
on a row. Sometimes I'm even impressed by myself when I think, where I get the energy? What did I thought? How can I get people occupied and interested for 9 years on a row for a boring ERP system? But for some reason it works.
I think you're well. As Tommy, so we talked a bit before this the show, and Tommy said that you were one of his inspirational
Thank you.
sources. Yeah.
Thanks.
So you've worked with AX since 2.3.
Yes, 2001 or 2002. Could be that I'm after the Euro change.
Yeah, and you're at Kaya Consulting.
Yes, I started at Navision Damgaard.
Yeah.
Localizations of France, Netherlands, UK, and Denmark. It was occupied by Microsoft at that time. And as you can see, Microsoft doesn't do training. So I was only doing support. So I was waiting on issues on the financial localizations of Denmark, UK, France, and the Netherlands, hypothetically doing nothing. I could not handle it anymore. So I switched to a partner, did training, and a while. And 4 or 5 years ago, we started our own business with a group of people, and we call us Kaya Consulting.
Yeah. How many people are you at Kaya right now?
In Europe, 30 people.
20 people and 2
30.
30. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And 2 MVPs.
Yes, Andre and me. Andre is doing the upper part, and I'm doing the plumbing part.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's kind of
Good
like
mix.
me
Good mix.
kind of like me and Tommy. I think.
Yeah, well, Andre and Dick was... Well, actually, Andre was awarded MVP in 2013, the same time as me. But I've met him. He's a brilliant guy. He's a really nice person.
Yeah. I'm just a 1 year MVP. Work at the same company as.
No,
as
it's your first year.
So I'm a rookie. Let's see.
No,
Hopefully we'll get more. I've only worked with AX since 2008. Well, Tommy, you've worked with AX since
2009.
2000.
I can tell you something about the MVP program. When I was MVP, there were 12 MVP persons. 3 of them didn't speak English, as Microsoft was not able to communicate with them. So there are about 9 people around the world where they can communicate with. So, and we had an opinion. First, they loved to hear our opinions, and then they thought, "Oh, they act almost like our customers. Only it's more fundamental and with real information." Now we have about, I think, 32 MVPs of AX. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And To be honest, we are more involved with the beta programs. So there's more in channel for us to participate with products and make it user friendly and developer friendly. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were in
listen to
the
us.
beta program for when it was called Rainier.
I was in the beta program for 2009. In 3.0, of course, I was working for Navision Vanguard for 2012 and also for AX7. So I've seen the beta programs, yes.
It's pretty well.
Yeah. That's also a good thing because then it makes it even more interesting to talk to you about basically the current version of the new Dynamics AX. Because you've been there,
Yes.
you've seen it grow from a little baby until what it is right now.
My first time when I was looking at AX7, I thought I am completely lost in my comfort zone. Everything is in it. We don't need any consultants anymore. There will be they hire a C# developer and that's it. I'm glad it's my old AX 2009 2012 feeling is still there.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Only we have empowered and embraced the .NET Visual Studio world, and that is really an improvement. Trust me.
So you're saying that you're not scared anymore now with
To be honest, sometimes when I'm back in 2012 and I do something, oh no, this is not AX7. I have to do it the hard way. Really?
Wow.
Really? I can tell you. I press F12 and I go straight to the table in the data dictionary and I can see my table.
Yeah, that's true.
So, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Cross-reference update, the SIL compile. But we all know Peter Villatsen, the original SIL compile, was there already in RTM. Only the Microsoft core team found it too risky to do too many changes. So the SIL compile was always separated. But the original in the RTM release, in the beta, it was 1-in-1.
Is that
only that time
for 2012?
Yes, only it was too risky because there were so many changes that they have to make a decision on the calculated risks, and it's a good choice because there were a lot of things changed. But originally, the SIL compile was not needed.
Yeah, because I think the partners kind of was taken for a ride by the complexity of it because they weren't prepared for what it actually entailed to do the SIL compile. Okay, so now I can't do live changes anymore, and because people in the earlier versions. It was crazy. Everybody went in, did changes to the code. Yeah.
You say something. The live changes. That means the famous job in the AOT where you could add a menu item to it of the type job and glue it in the menu.
That was when you did it. That was if you do it the nice way. There's a lot of different other types of changes I think people did.
The job is gone in AX7.
Yeah.
So that means if you want to do some change, you have to do it dirty in SQL, or really have a fixed package with a menu item in a menu and a class, and distribute it in a correct way to your lifecycle. So, generally, we have to act growing up. We are talking about our heart of our customer, and just do some cleaning. What about cleaning my hands? We're talking about the peer beating heart of a customer, what makes money with it. I think we should take it with care.
Yeah, but I think the partner channel is kind of working at the old model because there's a lot of seniors working within the system now that's going to have a hard time to kind of pivot over to the next development cycle, and they're used to getting a call from the customer. I want a new field, or I want this and that to happen to the system. Yeah, it's there in 10 minutes, and that's kind of gone. But I also agree with you.
No, it's not entirely the case. I always urge people to have a local VM installed with the Contoso data, play with it, work with it, because when I get functional designs of a consultant but only has screen dumps in 2009 and 2012, I always say, start thinking, I want to have tables, I want to have fields, I want to have details.
Yeah.
Well, a functional user in AX7 can not really give you the right mouse form info, but he can't really tell you what's the real table. So if you want to do this detailed information for interfacing and where you will think with you from technical point of view, he needs to have a local VM.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he cannot help you.
But it's still I think it's a new world. And going from 2009 to 2012, what happened with the 2012 installation? Not only that they introduced global data, like a lot of global data, and that kind of
do you know that AX 2009 in real life is AX 4.1?
No.
There has never been 2009. And the reason was at the time AX40 came out, and there was a huge demand for workflow and so on. And generally, they want to shift from 4.0 to AX 2012, but the demand was so extremely high for a new release. So 2009 is an in-between release in the data model. That's the reason why you have a lot of redundant data in the data model, because the redesign of the data model was not finished.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this, but it's so old. Who cares?
Yeah, I know. It's the fact that the data model is in AX 2012 has been so normalized that some people who previously would be sort of like pros and experts and heroes on making reports, they really struggled with making reports with AX 2012. But I guess they're past that point now. But still.
Well, last week I had this article attributes, and you have some fixed list of attribute values. I had to find the translation of that part of the fixed attribute list. Took me 3 days to find out. So sometimes I beat the system. It will be a blog article because it was killing and really frustrating me, because sometimes you really feel I'm beaten by AX, and that is something I don't want to like at all.
When you get into those tables where there's only 2 rec fields, the rec ID to a rec ID, it's easy to get lost, I think, especially for the developer guys. But that's the whole another story when it comes to AX7.
Well, there's a catch in that, because in AX7, when you open the table browser, you get the replacement key for free. So you think you have the right field, but the table browser already shows you the replacement key. So be very careful when you're pulling out data.
Yeah, well, isn't the story now that we shouldn't interface directly? I think Microsoft is closing more and more off the live database, which is running, and you have to access the data through secondary databases. They even have a clone of the database, which is just a couple of seconds later, which they do all the reporting from.
That's true.
Yeah, and then they have the entity store. Yeah.
But WCF is still there. It's my friend. I can still make my data contracts. Very glad I can do it.
Yeah, but that's not I think not the story that they're trying to sell right now. Because they want us to go to the entity store, and if you go to the entity store, the data is not normalized. It's kind of like a single line for multiple data.
Yeah.
And that's the story.
Let's for example have the data of the articles. Now I have some kind of system, and I want to have the articles that belong to one retail channel and related to one entity, whatever. So it means I have OData. So my consumer party must understand how to filter and to build my OData query. And that is something what you want to try to avoid. You want to provide data, but the external party should not be aware how the system works. It should be a bit black box, and it should be intuitive. And that's the reason why I still prefer to create views and as these views. But if you have a view in combination with OData or with DMF, then you're lost because there is no entity. So there's a catch in it. I understand what they want, but the same like in 2009 or 3, if you have to create a query for the collection letters, you must understand how the data model works to define it. So that's the added value for consultants. A lot of time when there's performance, then you see a query and the customer really built a query. He thought he was right, but it was not really clever because we know the data.
Yeah.
And with OData, it can still be the case.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a risk
So
or
we
an
still have to.
opportunity to earn money.
Now we have to know about all the OData or all the entities. We have to
Mhm.
get to familiar with those in addition to the data model that's beneath. So for us, consultants working in between, we kind of have to double up on our brain power to we got to make some room.
You're
for
basically
this.
saying that that there's still a need for developers. That there's still a high demand for developers for AX7.
Yeah.
Yes, if only for look for the data entities to figure out how the data entities works, or sometimes don't work, you need to have a local VM with Visual Studio and go for it.
Talk about the Visual Studio experience compared to like the old, I say the old, but it's still current, the AX 2012 development workspace, and even further, if you go further back with the previous versions of AX, how is the Visual Studio experience in comparison?
Well, for TFS integration, it's the same. If you have a very nice, you have to your dev brand and your release brand, it works fine. What is very funny is, for example, in AX7, when a user logs an issue, it already can become a task in TFS. So there's a quite connection from user experience to TFS. And from LCS, you can forward this ticket to Microsoft or to a developer. From support's point of view, it's really better. The search in data. It is debugging. You have to know the trick. You have to create a menu item and put it on the start project, and from there starting your debugging. And yeah, sometimes you get odd compile errors that some filters doesn't understand, and you have to understand the include part of the models, and that is a quite interesting story. But hypothetically, we work with models, but Microsoft generally has the sys also split up in models, and models have dependencies. And that is a quite interesting story to hook in, especially about overlaying and extension. And that is also close related how you develop in 2012.
Right. But so you immediately emphasize on the application lifecycle management. You find that to be a
Yes,
huge improvement. Yeah. Okay.
especially with R2, because before R2 it was fine, but now it's getting complete.
Okay. Cool.
The point is, I have you have an LCC assets tree. I have my build server, and generally I say this model want to be released to my production environment, and I just say upload this model and go with the flow, and the system take care of it.
Is there a manual process behind that?
Yeah,
For Microsoft parts, it kind of goes through the
only for
through the
production, but I'm aware they do
yeah.
manually. But I believe if you go from the development to test to acceptance, it's almost automated.
Okay.
So we just briefly talked about it, but so the functional consultants, the ones they are not developers, but they could probably read X++ code, and they probably maybe they were developers, but now they're functional consultants. And I've talked to a lot of people, and they're sort of afraid that the AX7 is they're gonna lose control. They're gonna lose access to the code. They're gonna lose a lot of their tools for reverse engineering the application, basically.
Well,
Should they be afraid, or?
well, some things you don't want to control. Why
Okay.
I'm telling this? Uh, I have seen customizations where people hook in some areas, and hypothetically, the financial system was corrupt. So for transactionals and a lot of things are so well defined and are just the default law of how doing finance, you should not bother those. What I a lot of times see is that people really, let's say I was in a situation in AX40 8 years ago, and they had the item ID field was changed to 250 because they didn't work with item IDs and they used the full name. So guess what? They synchronized the Halo database and there was something with performance. Well, sometimes you make changes to a system, you think it's clever, but on the end you will burn down your system. And the areas where you can burn down, that Microsoft tried to block us from killing the system, please, because then I can say I don't want to make it, but also I can't make it because it's blocked.
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of cowboys in the market, I think.
you would be glad that you are guided by Microsoft and don't touch this.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
So
the
you
Wild
basically
West is gone now. That's what you're saying. You can't be a
Oh, it's still possible, but
yeah.
okay, I'm a developer. That means I develop something, and when it's finished, it's finished. I don't call me 1 week later. It changes. I try to build it perfect from the first time. So when I talk to a customer, you talk about the definition of done, and it is just not creating codes, but if you have to create, for example, you're a developer, you have to create code, and you don't know the stories, you don't have the data. For example, you create a report. How can you create a report if you don't have data, and then they expect from you to do it right? So I think these days, I don't believe in a waterfall development. Let's develop for 3 months and there are something. You have small iterations because I assume I understand the system, and I assume I understand the customer, and the customer assumes that he thinks that I understand him. So why not check these assumptions every 2 weeks to be sure that we're on the right track?
So
Yeah, that's true.
you're saying scoping is much more
Yes,
important now. We need to scope it perfectly the first time, and then
exactly.
it's to put more work into the initial phase of the development,
Yes,
and then you get what you want and ask for. I think also that's
I'm assuming I get what I want, but that's to keep
yeah,
it in line.
yeah, but it's because you can't go in and do iterations, and as you say, the waterfall experience for where you develop something and then you test it and then you fix it and
Well,
test
we
it
had
and
a
fix it and
joke.
test it.
We always say you have to prepare the system. The system must be live in 9 months. Otherwise, the customer understands the system better than the consultants.
Okay, so Dick, question. So, I mean, with the previous versions of AX, I mean, the time between an idea and until it was developed, until it was in production, that cycle was pretty short. I mean, it could be really short. Has that changed with AX7, or is it still? I mean, you still have the cycle, and you still have a live environment that you can't really change anything in, and you're basically designing the application.
Well, I think it's not really the code itself, but the customer has changed. A customer is not waiting on a system what is ready in 5 years. A customer has an issue and want to have a solution. So you want to have an high fit and a low gap. And so how can you have it with a low gap? So I can have a high fit and I say, okay, I only go live with finance. And later on, I add in other parts. But it is the customer has to change because in the past we put everything in AX. It could even be a case, for example, that the customer goes with finance and fixed assets AX7, and for the rest it's still AX 2009, and we synchronize once a day, and later on we place models of data from 2009 into AX7. The point is, if you do everything at once, you have the Big Bang. Well, we have seen the rockets of Ariane, what always goes down, everything at once, and then a Big Bang is really a Big Bang. With software versions. But ERP these days, I think we should, it's not just AX. AX is I always talk about ERP implementations. That means I have CRM, I have Outlook, I have BizTalk, I have Dynamics AX, and together they have an ERP solution. That is what the customer needs, and they need a solution. And the solution is built with tools, and the tool AX, we know all the tricks and all the peaks and pokes, we know.
Okay, so are you saying that you would, in some cases, you would actually have sort of like a hybrid solution where you would have something run on AX7 and other things on perhaps other versions of AX?
Okay. If I can guarantee the continuous of the business, why not?
Okay, that's fair enough. So a completely different question. I was curious about with AX7 and Visual Studio. It seems natural that you will have more pure .NET developers coming on to the AX domain, if you like. And so, any seasoned .NET developer, what would you recommend that developer to look for and work with to become an AX developer,
Well,
basically?
there's one thing. There's one major difference for a C# developer. If we look at our extended data types, we have the type string or integer. From string and integer, we extend with other things and we add labels in it. In the .NET world, a string object is a sealed class. That means you cannot extend for it. So that means the extending and overlaying inheritance is a little bit different. And what you also see is that the X++ code is not truly .NET, because if you have a C# function that returns directly in a parameter of AX, you have an in-between placeholder, otherwise you get a stack trace. So X++, it looks like C#. It's used as almost, it is a compiler plugin, but hypothetically we use the editing tool called Visual Studio, which has a lot of fancy stuff in it. But the low level, it acts different, the binaries.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for historical reasons, you would obviously have a lot of code that's coming from the previous versions of AX, and today there are so many best practice patterns for the .NET developer
Well,
on how you.
the patterns. Do I have a book over here? No, it's in the office. Yeah, I have a library on the left as I'm looking at it. If you look at the normal code, you have code, and after a while we talk about reusable code. And then when there's this reusable code, you think then you do a completely redesign, and then you have a pattern. And if you look, for example, we have a lot of patterns in 2009. The pattern of creating an invoice, the pattern for creating a general ledger journal, the pattern for creating a sales order. So those are generally patterns that are defined by the dumb guts Microsoft team at that time. And if you understand this pattern and you can extend these patterns, then you can do it all. So development 4, for example, is generally recognizing the patterns and know where to hook in the patterns.
Oh, right. So, but development 4, that's the course development 4.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So basically, so your backdrop could be that you're a seasoned .NET developer, you know C# and you know perhaps a lot about programming, but getting to know the patterns that is within AX, that's a good option for a .NET developer to approach.
Yeah. So if you look at MSDN, the tables are documented, but the patterns are not documented. But if you look at .NET SDKs, we have the same. So we're not doing that worse. So then we have bloggers and say, look, if you combine .NET this, .NET that, and AX this, then you have this pattern, then it works.
Yeah.
And I always call it the invent your own syndrome. We have developers and also consultants. That means, let's say it this way. I have code, and code is black or it is white. It is white when I make it, and it is black when I don't understand it. So if I don't understand it, so it's worse. So don't use it. We're going to make our own standards.
Yeah.
That you doesn't understand doesn't mean it's worse. It's a risk because I don't understand it, so I cannot maintain it. It's a risk. So I always call it gray code. And you have to be very careful with gray code. And because you don't understand, that doesn't mean it goes wrong.
Okay. Well, to sort of segue into a different question, one thing I've noticed with AX is that the code base has expanded a lot. There's a lot of new functionality added to AX, and now with AX 2012, they could combine functionality for all sorts of regions, like even Turkish, Russian functionality in a Norwegian installation without getting any ID conflicts, basically. So now, yeah.
Again, the Turkish localization, we worked on it, we built it. But if you look at the depreciated feature list, then okay, the list is depreciated, but all the code is still there. So okay, there is much more code, but let's remove all the depreciated code. Do we still have more code? I don't know.
Okay. So you're saying there's a lot of functionality that's not really in use, but the code is still there in AX.
I can show you methods on tables, and the command line says depreciated features don't use.
All right.
Look, for example, at the dear party table. For example, I want to have the primary email address. If you look at the dear party table, there were functions in 2012 how to do, and those functions are still there. But in the command line, it tells depreciated. So that means we cannot guarantee that the net service pack is still there.
Okay.
So check your code what you use, even if it compiles. And
yeah, they've added attributes for deprecated code, so
Yes.
you'll get compiler warnings.
yes,
Yeah.
we should read them. That means compiler warnings. That means we have to hook in best practice. And I know best practice compiling in 3.0 and 4.0, that was a waste of your time, because generally the best practice told me that Microsoft did it wrong. And it was true. So even Microsoft did that wrong, how can I have a sub-view that, okay, besides Microsoft did something wrong, but what did I wrong? And that's the reason in 2012 where we had this best practice deck and skip lower layers. It was quite nice. And Microsoft also has some suppression of these errors in AX7. So yes, but also for example for code upgrades. If I look at how many of you followed the forum style guides of AX 2012? Because if you align the forum style guides, then the upgrade of the code is almost for free to AX7.
I have to, yeah, that's a really important thing that I've picked up on as a functional consultant, at least. So it's a very different story to do development for AX 2012 if you know that there's form templates that's there. And what's really important now is that if one of these forms doesn't have that form template attached to it, when you upgrade it, you have to do a lot of work. But if you follow these templates, the form patterns in AX7 will be adjusted to those, and that will be much easier. So the case that was one of the things I talked to developers at this the kickoff that we had.
It's
You
even
gotta
more.
follow the patterns, right?
It's even more. In 2009, if you forgot something, the code was still running. That means if you forgot security, if you have every menu item without security, it was there.
Yeah.
And oops, daisy, let's correct it in the live production. Let's open the AOT in production and correct what we forget to test. So hypothetically, we were allowed, how do you call this? Generally, we act called rapid application development. We were very quickly in developing. Only the testing passed. Oh, that's the production system.
Mm.
Yeah, I make it. It sounds like a joke, but really, sometimes I have the feeling that's because the key user has to test. I always make a compare. Let's say you have your brakes of your cars are wrong. So you went to the garage, and the guy from the garage fixed it and asked you, "Yeah, can you drive 120 kilometers and see if the brakes are fine?" You're laughing.
Yeah, but it's true.
But we
Yeah.
ask the customer the same.
Yeah, but is that also in this X7 that you have this improved? You can store the task guides as test scripts for code that you can run later on.
Well, I worked for Lucent. It was a telephone company, and that software is still live. The first line was written in 1974, so that code base is 30 years old. It's the same. It's a little bit younger than the Apollo program. And they these days have a hard time of the hardware. So this were the telephone switches from Lucent. And its quality is here. This air and that air. I listen. Quality is between these lines, and my hands are the results of this quality. So, and if you look at Agile Scrum, and I really realize is that we call it the definition of done. That means, Tommy, you're a developer.
Yeah.
What should I do to complete? And Fredrik, you're the consultant. What is it? What I can expect when a developer has done? What I see these days is when we do developing, we think always about what do we develop. Generally, the happy flow we are aware. But make a small checklist on your code. Do we do something additional? Do we have to write a script at go live? So a lot of things, the functional part is there. Just make checklists that guarantees is there. Checklist is the security aligned? Is there a role there? And all those very small lines. In 2009, we could fix it at night with a small script, and now fixing it, it's the life cycle of one day. So a quick corrects my oops, I forgot something is not there. So how can I avoid this quick need? Oh, oops, I forgot something.
Test,
so
right?
Yeah.
So you got to test it thoroughly.
Yeah, but testing, you test what is in the functional design. That means if you forget in the functional design about authorization, trust me, like labels. For example, I'm in the Netherlands. I always develop in English. Could be that I, for example, forget the labels in Germany or translations.
Right.
You always you develop code with an assumption. And so at this current project, we are just every 2 weeks we have the retrospective, and also part of the retrospective is also redefine the definition of done, because in the definition of done we can avoid mistakes. The English is a checklist to avoid stupid mistakes, so we don't make them again.
Yeah.
I know a very philosophical approach. Do it one time right. It's the most cheapest for us all.
Yeah, it's do it the second time wrong. Shame on you, right? You have to know. There, as you say, there's no oops, I forgot something now, because it will take at least a couple of days before 1 to 3 days before you can fix it. And if it's in live environment, it's well, that's some. But again, that's some pros and cons, right? Because now we have to go. You're forced into having a more detailed process from the development stage to defining what you want, to the testing, and then to the deployment. So we're looking at a much larger scope when you first start to do some changes to your applications. So again, it's a higher bar to start it.
Yeah, we are not supporting Git yet, unfortunately, but we still have the Visual Studio online services. It's for example, last week I was creating an interface, and I got a request additional, and I say it does not belong to an interface. It's a functional change. It's a different process. And the customers say, no, it's part of the interface. So you see the information and the scope of your development getting larger and larger and larger. And you have to break down to the other Danish product called Lego. Small blocks, reliable bricks. Otherwise you get Dominus D-Day.
Yeah.
Another Danish invention.
You know, there are more Lego blocks than people around the world. Eh? Did you know?
No, I didn't.
I read an article about it.
I'm not surprised. So, a question for you, because you've been through a lot of the stages with the AX as a developer. If you think about it, what's perhaps the biggest challenge for a developer when he's going from, say, AX3, AX4, 2009, 2012, and now to AX7? Are there really big differences, and what are the potential challenges for a developer?
Well, if you look in, I always make it in 3.0, the system was quite simple. But can you remember that we had at that time we had the Commerce Gateway? Can you remember the products? It was a solution from Navision. It was hooked up. So when we went to 4.0, 2009, And we have the first AEF, what only was able to read, and then Service Pack 8 came out, and we were able to update the interfaces. We had to develop an application twice for the web and also for the forms. And then the PDF reader. Every month there was an update, and the PDF reader was, the bold line was under my line, above my line, the block left shift to the left, the block shift to the right, and functional departs or reports. It was the integration with the side products. It wasn't horrible, and on the end now we have an very more straightforward data model. For us, if you look at an article with attributes, in the past, when you have attributes, you have to adapt the system. Now you don't have to adapt the system anymore. The account structures, you don't have to adapt this anymore. So all those things are there. So the need to really go into the core is not needed anymore. And
It's about the core concepts are a bit more general than they were before. They were a bit more set. So it's
more complete.
It's more configurable now.
Complete.
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah. And so when do we kind of like cross the border where AX becomes the next SAP and where we have like millions of different functionality? They pull in a lot of different modules now.
I think we already know.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so and I can tell you, bang, and it has to do with SQL. When we start working about optimistic concurrency, the RAC version, how we store data in it, that means that the page logs were not there anymore. From that moment, SQL was there to say, let's go on a high level. That was the first start.
Okay.
Now we have our batch framework, and to be honest, our batch framework is very nice, unless if it is in threads what goes below the 5 minutes. And I don't know how it works for AX7, but in 2012 the batch was a little bit overkilled. And someone from Microsoft should understand that a random GUID is not so good cluster index on workflow. And okay, can happen. Everybody has this learning curve, even Microsoft, because there's a lot of pain in this. So yes, we are on the right track. And with AX7 we have a web form, so the hotkeys are gone. So a mass data update worker is not going to work in the web browser. He's going to work in an Excel plugin.
Well, they're not gone. They're just moved around. I always open a new window when I want to create a new record.
Yes,
I have to pull Alt instead of.
Well, let's example. I'm a category manager and I have to update for my supplier of company A, and I have every day I get 1,500 new trade agreements in Excel. And I want to input them quickly and understand. And in the past, he could go to the grids and just copy and paste and so on. These mass updates, I think, of course, they will go to Excel now. So I think mass updates is an Excel-related or data-related stuff now. So I think the mass update is an Excel thing.
Okay. Is that something you've picked up from the pattern? Oh, sorry, the framework itself, the AX7 framework is sort of going that way?
You have to, because a high-performance data manager cannot work in a web browser. Have you ever seen how fast people in 3.0 could create a sales order with lines? How fast it went? I have seen people creating SOs, sales orders, with 5 lines in 15 seconds in AX 3.0.
I think it's a bit slower, but
that user knows hotkeys. Incredible, because we are using the mouse, and if you only work with hotkeys, it goes extremely fast.
Yeah, but that's one of the areas that they actually focused on, and I think Adrian says it every time he goes up there and talks about the user. It's a mass data entry system. But again, the HTML is a bit, or the browser is of course a bit slower than the one happens when you go to a local client. It's not that much slower, and the hotkeys are there, and also of course the search functionality that you can do. It's
Well,
broader, but you only the repetitive stuff is like 5 or 6 hotkeys at the most.
but to give you an idea, because the AX client and the AX server is like a marketplace. If you, for example, start an AX client in 2012, you have 1500 round trips between your AX client and your AOS, and your client is there. Oh, so talking about performance. So we have these kernel classes, application, and so on, and those classes are updated real time between the client and the AOS. So only getting the client data and the AOS data in sync was taking so much performance because most codes are not optimized client side. Let's say invoice approval and invoice messaging for vendors. With all those temp tables, if you look at the logic in the codes, for example, a thing as link active in a form, if you want to kill performance, start using link active. And with AX7, link active is gone. Here you go. Here's your performance.
Yeah. So what you talk, but you're talking about basically the chit chat between the client and the server side. That's
Horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible, and it's gone with AX7, so you don't have that anymore. No.
It will now be Excel and your URL of the AOS.
Okay. So what you're also saying is that with Excel, it's also going to be super quick because you don't have that chit chat with between Excel and.
Well, let's say I'm still wondering what happens to AX7, but we have this data quality management in from SQL. I haven't heard anything about it for AX7, but let's say vendor catalog. If you, for example, have vendor catalog, it means I have a vendor and I have data. This data gets all around by email, by telephone, by fax, and that has to get some guys normalized into AX on the end. And then Excel is a very good tool to optimize this code, serialize this code the right way, and put it with DMF into AX. So Excel can really be your friend for standardizing the crap what you get from the mail, from the web, into a predictable format.
Okay. So talk about during upgrades, you're going to do overlaying and extensions. Talk about the difference between those.
Well, if you look at the picture you see here, then the code upgrades in generally says I put some codes from 2009 or 2012 in application foundation and part of a new application platform. So generally you can say if you compare to 2009 or 4.0, we have the model. Let's split this model in submodels. 2012, the same. In 2012, we already have our own models. So Microsoft really splits the sys layer or model into subs. And it just looks at the code which you have to adapt. And the code that you have to adapt, from there it says it overlays. So it really changed. So in this case, I had some changes on the SRS client servers class and on the SRS report run class. So my solution was in generally I changed code in it. So in the perfect world in AX7B is this code we have to change. So can you go to the next slide, please? Here I say, okay, we're gonna move everything to a separate model, like we did in 2012, and all my changes are hooked in with events, like the pre-event and the post-event. Only in AX7 we have pre and post events on classes, on tables, on menus. There are way more events where you can hook in. So you really can isolate your codes. So if Microsoft changes for the benefit of the product, I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Cool.
Yes, I had this code to create for Microsoft. I got all this material. I just created a new model, as you can see in this slide. Then I opened the File Explorer and I simply moved all the data from this map, from my local VM, to this new map. And I just compiled it and see what happens. And of course, I get compile errors. And the reason is I have to add some includes. That means if you have a new model and I extend for several points, for example, I use an extended data type called date of year or date of month, that belongs to the model calendar. So it's like in C#, I have to build some kind of include library. And these parameters act like an include things. It means if you can't find it in my code, have a look over here. So what is very funny, you have the classic view. You also have the model view. And the model view means I really can see quickly what is in this model, what is in it. And that really can help you. So at least it helps me. Here, oh yeah, of course, I created this new model in my system. But having this new model means this model needs also to be hooked in TFS. Because in TFS is the source where we put our code in, and that is also the source that is placed to our build server. The build server results in some kind of model object release that will be added to the production environment finally.
So the TFS is kind of like the core of everything now. Also seen the gaps for the documentation in the business process modeler. It's going to be so the business process modeler is going to be assigned tasks into the TFS now. So everything's going to spin around that.
I'm honest. I have not worked with that one. A little bit classic. I still use having you create a task and on the task is user story. You hook in your codes, and I really don't care how the task or the user story is getting in the system as long as it's there. Yeah, be aware of the depreciated features. Even if it's compiled, because if you understand the concepts of data migration framework in 2012, you also understand the basic concept of DMF in AX7 because the object framework is not changed. Or did you see different, Tommy?
No, I agree with you on that one, and I think it's highly interesting because with AX7 they just expanded on the same philosophy they have with the import-export framework in 2012.
Yes. Yes, and there is one very important thing. If you go to the last slide, it is from how can I develop code in 2012. On the right is in Dutch, I see. And it's because the template, the form style guides. If you apply the form style guides, and those exist in 2012, it can be your friend, so you don't have to worry about it. Because if you apply style guides, that means the consultant tells you in generally to which field group the fields belong, because he always tells about fields on the form. I never heard him telling about it should be added to this field group. Apply the style, avoid any best practice error and warnings, and do clean coding. And also, if you're gonna upgrade, it's more easy to remove the obsolete code in 2012 than start removing it in AX7, because cleaning up code in 2012 goes faster than AX7.
Okay, you're saying it's quicker and easier to clean up code in 2012.
It's your comfort zone. You created it there, so you know what's there. And now you are in a new area where you try to figure out, find back what you have created. So start cleaning in your comfort zone.
But so what if you have, because you did say that when you bring over forms, you remove all the forms, but could you basically recreate the forms in AX 2012 using the templates instead, just to get some startup?
Well, let's say if I have let's say I have a customer running AX 2009, and I'm a little bit scary on AX7. So hypothetically, you can say, okay, I import the AOD file in 2012. All my forms are created in relation to the form style guide. It works. And then I move it to AX7. Of course, you still have to do with the menu structure and security things. But I think you have a rather good chance of success, because no code in the forms is always good.
But then again, building a new form in AX7 still, it's not that difficult to do.
I understand, but you have to understand how it looks and how it feels.
Yeah.
And if you have time for the learning curve, it's fine. But most of the time, you don't have the time for the learning curve. You have to do it.
Yeah. And if you're already familiar with AX 2012 and how to create a form that where you'll probably do it there quicker.
Yes.
So,
what I'm a little bit missing is the form templates in AX7. I heard stories that we'll get them also in 2010 of AX7. But at this moment, what I do, if I create a parameter form, I just steal an existing AX parameter form, adapt it, and from that point, I start working.
Well, we're out of time, at least for myself. Thank you very much, Dick, for joining us on such a short notice.
Welcome.
Yeah. Tommy, anything you'd like to say at the end? Anything you want to plug? Like your blog again?
Yeah, sure. My blog is still yet another Dynamics AX blog, blogspot.com. What else would I plug? I'd say use the community forum for Dynamics AX. Be active there. That's a good thing. Yeah, and my Twitter feed is also at Skaue.
A-U-E. S-K-A-U-E.
A-U-E, yeah. That's right.
You can read about what I have.
Is it Nordic surrender?
No.
I don't know. Are you saying there's a Dutch word, Skaue?
No, not.
Okay.
Yeah, you can follow me at AXFrederick on Twitter, and I've put in some cash now, and I got my own domain, so it's dynxtips.com, DYNAXtips.com. It's my blog, and where you can find more stuff on AX. You, Dick, and anything you want to share? Yeah.
In the past, I always had my own blog AX Starts, but I was tired of putting all those updates on it, so I have closed it down, put everything on the company blog, same like Andre. So there is one good address called kaya-consultant.com for 2 MVPs writing blogs every month. At least I'm trying to. Plenty of ideas, no time to write them. So I hope that I've written the articles before you're going to need it. That's all.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dick. And
welcome.
I'll talk to you in 2 weeks, Tommy. Bye.
Bye.